And now, let's get on to a documentary on one of my, I might even say, heroes, Professor Norman Finkelstein, best known for his commentary and scholarship on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, although a man who happens to be a highly insightful and captivating teacher and speaker on any topic he seemingly chooses to espouse on. Released in 2008, this film, American Radical, chronicles Finkelstein's life in the aftermath of what Chomsky referred to as a jihad against Finkelstein conducted by one Professor Alan Dershowitz. Dershowitz, who is interviewed and is allowed to give his own perspective in the film, decried against Finkelstein's potential receiving of tenure at DePaul University in 2007, and which, for the most part, has stained his academic career since. Finkelstein is still apparently unable to retain long-term teaching positions, despite a reasonably robust series of, at least, independent media appearances, though his semi-frequent appearances on Piers Morgan Live since October 7th are certainly welcome, and it is good to know that a lucid, sound, morally strident voice is speaking on this issue on such a scale. The documentary is a stirring examination of Finkelstein during a certain period in his life, demonstrating his infectious affability, his passion and vigor, his sheer expertise and summonable facts on topics he is invested in, his fearlessness in the face of argument. Rarely have I admired another human being more. What had Finkelstein done to incur the wrath of Alan Dershowitz? In 2003, Dershowitz published a book titled The Case for Israel, in which he defended both Israel's right to exist and its seemingly virtuous moral character. Yes, someone has attempted to do this. And Finkelstein, publicly to Dershowitz's face, accused it of being a fraud at worst and sloppy scholarship at best, though Finkelstein seemed to err on it being disingenuous, a distorting of citations and facts, or even a plagiarism, in part at least, of a previous work, which Finkelstein became initially known for during the 80s for debunking, Joan Peters' text From Time Immemorium. Their debate, Finkelstein and Dershowitz's, held in two parts on the program Democracy Now!, these clips can be viewed on YouTube, is the stuff of legend now, featuring many iconic, quotable lines. "Turnspeak is not all well, Mr. Dershowitz. For your sake, Mr. Dershowitz, I hope you didn't really write this book, because I would be embarrassed if I was responsible for this work. Mr. Dershowitz, this is not the OJ trial, we're not playing a game." Or, "Mr. Dershowitz, I read your book twice, and actually, since I've read Joan Peters' From Time Immemorium 4 times, I've read it 6 times. Dershowitz seemingly vowed to ruin Finkelstein's life, or at least academic career, and as I said, whilst Finkelstein has managed to procure an extremely exalted reputation on the political left, for the very most part, his income from teaching has been essentially non-existent for 2 decades now, which is a crying shame, because listen to this man lecture on any topic on YouTube, on John Stuart Mill, to the Communist Party of Great Britain no less, Thomas More and Utopia, Mahatma Gandhi, and even Maoism. Is he not one of the most captivating and compelling speakers, lecturers you have ever encountered? And how bewildering is it that one man can be so informative and insightful, and yet also be so unbelievably funny? Finkelstein has me cracking up more than most comedians. An analogy about a devout Christian attempting to save their friend from presumed divine punishment, an obscene act involving a goat, is one of the most strange and unpredictably ludicrous and hysterical things I have ever heard in my life. How Finkelstein manages to keep such a potent sense of humour despite the depression he must feel in researching the Israeli-Palestinian violence so fastidiously, despite knowing the sheer suffering his parents endured during the Nazi genocide, and all through his non-personing by the academic and mostly, certainly mainstream, media community, it is an inspiration to us all, or at least I find it, as corny as this sounds, I know, totally empowering. It should go without saying, a part of what has given Finkelstein an initial degree of immunity, not that it helped him much in the grand scheme of things, or credibility in discussing matters related to Israel, genocide, and the exploitation of the Holocaust to downplay Jewish aggression or immorality in the present day, was that his parents were both Holocaust survivors, his father in particular having lived through the Auschwitz concentration camp. It was these lessons, the characters that it made of his parents, and his determination to honour their memory that made him convicted about calling out what he deems, I think in most people's minds rightfully, a horrifying instance of inexcusable violence, use whatever term that you want, being committed upon the Palestinian population by the Israeli government and armed forces, as well as the settlers, for that was a more relatively recent development by comparison. One becomes attached to Chomsky as a younger, left-leaning idealist, and they also learn to get a lot out of Zizek, entertainment if nothing else, and eventually, when one is in search of another compelling left-wing intellectual to gift you insight into why the truth you're fed may be a conscious distortion, they come across Finkelstein. I became intrigued by Finkelstein in particular in late 2020 in search of another compelling intellectual like Chomsky or Zizek to settle and soothe me during periods of depression and extreme jaded feelings toward the established order with more right-wing politics and aspiring for more to this world than the banal 9-to-5 sandwiches in suburbia or money-collecting miseries which were being imposed on all of us. I became even more attached to Finkelstein in 2021 as Israel increased its violence at that time toward the Palestinian people, especially in the Gaza region, and the great Katie Halper would have Finkelstein on for up to 3 hours at a time, rarely interrupting him, and everything Finkelstein said was revelatory, gold, and extremely elucidating regarding the historical conflict between the Israelis and the Palestinians. The man knows his stuff so well, it sincerely bowls me over. And he's gone up against the likes of Benny Morris, Alan Dershowitz again, Rabbi Shmuley, and other defenders of Israel's inexcusable actions, ardent, rabidly ideological Zionists. I am not against the existence of a Jewish state, religious or secular, but I am against fanatical zealotry, which Zionism not infrequently manifests as, not dissimilarly to the instances of radical Islamism emerging in the oppressed Palestinian population, mutating out of the more secular or nationalist, even vaguely far left, ethos of Arafat and the PLO. Finkelstein, whenever confronted on his beliefs, defends them rigorously, and I've never seen him effectively cornered. He knows his facts too well, and his moral core is so strong and unflinching. He knows the relevant reports and facts. He's not afraid of anyone attempting to undermine his beliefs because few research his topic as clinically and insatiably as him. And what made me love Finkelstein all the more when exploring him more so, say, in 2021, was his abject dismissal of the excesses of what many people call woke extravagance or virtue signaling or SJW attention seeking, whatever you want to refer to it as. Finkelstein aptly called out the upper middle class or lower upper classes' attempts to make the left-wing continuum into a hierarchy of cool or uncool, in or out of the clique, based upon vacuous moralizing, as the Christian faith was wont to do for centuries, including in my own personal experiences in life. Finkelstein insists a reorientation of the left beyond posturing pseudo-morally for others and into a more strictly egalitarian ethos which rejects the idea of superior or inferior, because too many rich kids adored the idea of posturing over others using pseudo-left-wing values as a shield. Clearly, the man is morally consistent, a true soldier of the left, and someone who I aspire to resemble in my convictions, my determination, my ability to engage an audience, and to clearly have fun while doing so. I've spoken for a while in this piece here, some of it was probably pointless at the end of the day. I'm very fond of Finkelstein, wanted to promote him and this very strong documentary here, probably viewable on YouTube, though I'm not sure. In any instance, if you only know Norm from discussing the Israeli-Palestinian conflicts, check him out discussing the left-wing culture in general, the freedom of speech question, the ideas of Plato, or even the lives and strengths of certain American presidents, and you'll be witness to one of the most compelling, watchable, and enriching academic voices the English-speaking world has and probably ever will produce.